Hey guys, welcome back to Tower of God New World. In today's video, we're checking out Yeon. Now, I know I say her name wrong. I even went to a pronunciation website. I swear they say it the same way. Those sites must be just wrong. That's all I got. But I've tried to figure it out. But she is coming. Now, she is an enemy in the tower. So that's where these skills have come from that we've got to look at. Massive shout out to Pridewin for updating the database and putting all these on. Now, this is calculated at level 4. And I want to talk about it because I think she's going to be one of the best endgame DPS at the moment. However, she does fall into the issue of being a ranged unit, which means she's going to have that issue of you need to have the tank. Kind of like if you go and use Wang, you need that protection. This does not work as a hyper carry, so I don't know. Maybe I'll try and progress, reroll an account and try and progress with her to see how it works. The reason I always liked Hats as my first carry was because he can also tank it out as well, whereas these kind of characters, they're sort of... And she as well, she sort of harms herself. She doesn't have like the extra life kind of like Wang does. But the first thing I want to do is look at multipliers. So what I want to look at is first, if we go over to Wang and we take a look at his skills at level 5, this is. So if we look at his level 5 skill and we've got a 180 multiplier times 8. Now, his are guaranteed crits, so that is obviously a big thing. But I just want to look at base multipliers. So that is 1440. And then if we go back over to Yeon, she's got, so 1440, she's got 245 times every second for 7 seconds, so 7. So she's already higher on the multiplier, but the thing is, this is only at level 4, so they're only displayed in the game in the tower stage at level 4, so she's got more room to grow on this multiplier, which is honestly quite nice. Once again, she doesn't have the guaranteed crits, but it's just interesting to look at multiplied numbers. So I think based off that, we know she is going to deal big damage, like solid damage, and I don't think that is going to be an issue for her at all. The problem is she becomes immune to status effect change while using the skill. And then, so the way she uses it is she stays at range the whole battle, and she just stands in the back, and this massive flame just pulses out from her across the entire battlefield, is the way that people explained it to me. So I think that is going to be very potent. I'll have to wait and check. Once again, enemies can change the way they are implemented in the game until we get them released as playable characters. But at the moment, it's looking like it should be pretty strong. Now, once again, she becomes immune to status effect while using the skill. So she is... The one thing about this is she is out of action for the other 7 seconds. But if you look at someone like Wang, he's out of action for like 4 seconds while he throws his ball. However, you can do the camera cancelling trick to avoid that. And then her physical and magical resistance are decreased by 20%. So while she is there, once again, she needs to be protected. Otherwise, she is going to get clapped. So this is where she isn't a hyper carry unit at all. It's a matter of if you can get her to that ult quick enough, have energy regeneration units before your stall tank dies, and then have her delete the whole enemy team and not have to worry about anything else. My one concern with that is, through my experience playing, obviously Hats doesn't have full board AoE that just wipes everyone, so it could be different. But when I use Hats as a carry and his damage is just generally lower, he always dies. Like, no, the rest of the teams are always dead, and he's like, you know, trying to tank it out as well. So I'm curious to see how this will work. I'm really tempted to roll a new account and test her as the carry because I think she's going to be pretty solid. Now, next up, we have Yeon. She gathers her flames and deals 700% of her attack as damage to enemies in a fan-shaped area, knocking them back. Now, knockbacks are always handy because it's also an interrupt, and I know, like, for instance, with Evan, when he uses his knockback, its timing is just damn perfect, where it interrupts a lot of enemies' abilities and, like, throws them out of whack, so they just use basic attacks for a longer period of time. So if it has interactions like that, it's actually an amazing ability. On top of that, with something like this, you may get away with putting her on a side tank spot, but I highly doubt it. But if she is hyper leveled, so if you're running her 20 levels above the rest of your team, I feel like she will, and especially if you're investing gear and all that sort of stuff, I feel like she will be able to sit in an off tank side, you know, just tank that one enemy enemy that runs up, then knock them back. Hopefully it knocks them back far enough that they then run and engage on your tank as well. But that's going to get her some extra energy, but also she should be able to survive it if she is power leveled. So that is something I think this ability is going to be very good for. Once again, 700% multiplier, not too bad for a sub skill, and that is only at level 4, so that will go up. I'd probably say, you know, from 750, probably around 750-ish, maybe like 740 to 760 would be my guess, but we'll have to wait and see. But nonetheless, that is a pretty handy ability. It may look basic, but I think that is going to be really useful. Next up, we have another active skill. She envelops her entire body in flames, creating a barrier equal to 700% of her attack for 10 seconds. The flame barrier deals 175% of her attack as damage every second to nearby enemies. That's another 1750 multiplier. That is another massive multiplier, but the catch is the enemies have to be near her, and ideally she wants to be hiding and not near the enemies. However, once again, this is one of those things, depending on her skill turn order and stuff like that, depending on if any amount of swiftness can change those orders. If she gets this up early and she's in that off tanking position, this could be very valuable. The other thing you could do to manipulate this, which I've tried with other characters before, something like the blind from what's her face, the new chick, I can't remember her name, the one I always say wrong, Jaja. I always feel like I'm saying Jar Jar Binks. But like what I can do with her is I can put her in an off tank slot, so I can put her in the front row on the far right, let's say, and then I put my tank behind her. The tank runs up, takes the aggro of all those enemies, and then all the other ones drag in. But then what I can do is I have that blind, which then hits the fan because the enemies got closer to her, but they're not attacking her yet, and I can blind those enemies. And once again, that will work with this knockback, but this one could be really nice. The one problem becomes if she knocks the enemies back and your allies advance forward, and then it pushes them out of the range where they can use this. So I'm going to have to see the interactions on this. So that's something I'm really keen to see, but you can manipulate it to have enemies near her whilst not attacking her so that she can deal this damage. And also this one could come in clutch. We know that while she's channeling her ults, she gets pretty much boned, but if she gets a good chunky 700% shield, that could help her if she is in a hyper carry position where she's got extra evasion because you've built her up well. Like this shield could be enough to help sustain her through what she needs to do. But once again, if you got that multiplier into this multiplier, and the other thing is I'm curious to see if you can have this channeling. So it doesn't look like this is a channeling. So this one's a channeling. She envelops her whole body in flames, creating a barrier that for 10 seconds. The barrier's, yeah, so it's the barrier that does it. So I'm assuming you could apply this, then use the ultimate, and you are just absolutely melting anything in range. And even if enemies come close, they're probably just going to insta-flop. So I think this is going to be pretty big. Once again, we have to see interactions. On paper, I feel like I could make this chick be like the best DPS in the game. But once again, it depends on how the interactions work. Then we haven't even gone into her passive. She ignites enemies hit by her basic attack, with embers decreasing their defense by 14%, maximum 6 stacks. That is a huge defense shred. When the number of stacks reaches maximum, she consumes them and deals 190% of her attack as damage to the enemy, stunning them for 3 seconds. The embers dissipate if she dies. This one, I almost want it not to dissipate. For bosses, it's like, I'd rather just leave that maxed out death shred. It's just going to depend how quick it cycles. You know, you're probably going to end out with an average, you know, on a boss fight, if you average it out, probably like an average, if you like leveled it out, like 20 to 30% defense break average through the entire fight because of the way it detonates, depending on how long it takes to reaccumulate. Normally you can say about half of it. So I don't know. I want to say 20 to 30 to be conservative, but it could well be up to like, you know, 40, 45 if we try and average it out, depending on the interactions, because she will get interrupted on using her basic attacks when she uses her other abilities, especially her ultimate. So ideally, you want her basic attack to be like, I can see like manual play being a thing where on bosses, you go like, make sure it's 6 stacked and then interrupt her next basic attack by using her ultimate so that for the full 7 seconds of her ultimate, the enemies at max stacks of death shred. That's for some min-maxy stuff. I can see people doing it. I probably won't because I'm too lazy, but it could be a thing. But yes, this is really nice. You've got death shred tied into basic attacks plus a stun. Unfortunately, it's only single target. I was hoping that, I mean, this is pure copium. Like if that was an AoE explosion that stunned all enemies in range, that would be huge, but in general, I think her kit looks amazing. Obviously, we don't know until we test her, but I think she could be probably the best SSR damage unit. As for whether she would be the first one you want to build, I'd really have to experience it myself to see if she would work. If you do have her as your first carry unit, you are 100% going to have Data Mashini or Data Zahard. There is no way around that, in my opinion, because you're not going to live long enough to push high deficits otherwise. But that is my thoughts. That is her skills. Once again, those are at level 4. We've got one more level to add into them. Could change. We'll have to wait and see, but she's coming on the 30th. Thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.